Hey everyone, welcome back to Readalong Saturday, and today we are diving into the second chapter of White Nights by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, The Second Night. Well, so you survived, she said to me, laughing and taking hold of both my hands. I've been here for 2 hours already. You have no idea what I have been through today. I know, but now to the matter at hand. Do you know why I have come? Not to talk nonsense like yesterday. Here's why. We need to act more sensibly from now on. I thought about all this for a long time last night. But how? How are we to be more sensible? For my part, I'm ready, but really nothing more sensible has ever happened to me in all my life than what is happening now. Is that so? First of all, please don't squeeze my hand like that. And second, I want to tell you that I thought about you long and hard today. Well, and what conclusion did you reach? Conclusion? I concluded that we must begin all over again because today I came to the conclusion that I don't know you at all, that yesterday I acted like a child, like a little girl. And it goes without saying that it turned out that my kind heart was to blame for it all. And that is, I praised myself, which is how it always ends when we start examining our actions. And that's why, in order to correct this mistake, I've decided to find out everything I can about you in the most detailed manner. But since there's no one from whom I can find out anything about you, you must tell me everything yourself, everything that there is to know. Well, what sort of a person are you? Quickly, begin. Tell me your story of your life. The story of my life? I cried out, frightened. My story? But who told you that I have a story to tell? I don't have a story. But how have you lived if there's no story? She interrupted, smiling. Absolutely without stories of any kind. I lived, as they say, on my own. That is, absolutely alone. Alone. Completely alone. Do you understand what it means to be alone? But what do you mean by alone? Do you mean you never see anyone? Oh no, of course I see people, but nevertheless, I am alone. But can it really be that you don't talk to anyone? Strictly speaking, to nobody. So, who are you then? Explain yourself. Wait, I'll hazard a guess. You probably have a grandmother, like I do. She's blind, and for as long as I can remember, she has never let me go anywhere, so that I have practically forgotten how to talk. A couple of years ago, I got into a lot of mischief, and she saw that she couldn't control me. So she called me over and pinned my dress to hers with a safety pin. And ever since, we sit like that for days on end. She knits a stocking, even though she is blind, and I sit beside her, sewing or reading a book to her out loud. It's such a strange way to live, and I have been pinned to her like that for 2 years already. Oh my god, how dreadful! But no, I don't have a grandmother like that. But if you don't, then how is it that you stay at home? Listen, do you want to know what sort of person I am? Well, yes. In the strict sense of the word, in the very strict sense of the word. Well, then, I'm a type. Type? Type? What sort of type? The girl cried out, laughing as if she had not had a chance to laugh for a whole year. You're certainly very amusing company. Look, there's a bench here. Let's sit down. No one walks by here. No one will hear us. And you can begin your story because you won't succeed in persuading me otherwise. You do have a story. only you're concealing it. First of all, what is a type? A type, a type is an eccentric, a ridiculous person. I answered and burst out laughing myself in response to her childish laughter. He's a real character. Listen, do you know what a dreamer is? A dreamer? Excuse me, but of course I do. I am a dreamer myself. What doesn't enter my head sometimes when I'm sitting beside my grandmother? Well, then you begin to dream, and you become so lost in your thoughts that before you know it, you're marrying a Chinese prince. But sometimes dreaming is a good thing. But then, God only knows, particularly if there's something to think about without dreaming, the girl added, quite serious now. Excellent! If you've been married to a Chinese emperor, that means you'll understand me perfectly then. Well, listen, but excuse me, I don't even know your name. At last, you certainly took your time about it. Oh my goodness, it never entered my head. I was so happy as it was. My name is Nastenka. Nastenka! And that's all? That's all? Is that really not enough for you? What an insatiable fellow you are. Not enough? On the contrary, it's a great deal, a very great deal indeed, Nastenka. You're a kind girl if you are Nastenka to me right away. So, there you are. So then, Nastenka, listen to what a ridiculous story this turns out to be. I sat down next to her, assumed a pedantically serious pose, and began as though I was reading something that had been written down. There are, Nastanka, in case you don't know, there are rather strange little corners in Petersburg. It's all as if the same sun that shines for all of the Petersburg's people doesn't even peek into these places. But there is another different new sun, as if specially ordered for these corners, and it shines on everything with a different, special light. In these corners, dear Nastenka, it's as if a completely different kind of life is lived. One that doesn't resemble that which seeds around us, but the kind that might exist in a faraway kingdom, and not among us in our serious, oh so serious times. And it is this life which is a mixture of something purely fantastic, fervently idle, and at the same time, alas, Nastanka, dully prosaic and ordinary, not to say incredibly vulgar. Ah, good heavens! What an introduction! Whatever will I hear next? You'll hear Nastanka. It seems that I shall never tire of calling you Nastanka. You'll hear that in these corners live strange people, dreamers. A dreamer, if you require a precise definition, is not a man, but some sort of a sexless being, you see. For the most part, he makes his home somewhere in an inaccessible corner as if he were hiding there even from the light of day. And once he goes into hiding, he sticks to his corner like a snail, or at any rate, he very much resembles in this regard that entertaining animal, both animal and house at the same time, which is called a tortoise. Why do you think? Why does he so love his own four walls, which are certain to be painted green, covered with soot, wretched and unforgivably grimy from tobacco smoke? Why does this ridiculous gentleman, when one of his few acquaintances comes to visit him, and he ends up losing all his acquaintances, why does this ridiculous person greet him with such embarrassment, such a changed countenance, and such confusion? As though he had just committed a crime within his four walls, as though he had been forging counterfeit notes, or some little poems to be sent to a journal with an anonymous letter in which it is revealed that a true poet has died and that his friend considers it his sacred duty to publish his deities. Why? Tell me, Nastenka, does the conversation between these two interlocutors never get going? Why does neither laughter nor some lively remark fly from the tongue of the completely unexpected and perplexed friend, who in different circumstances likes to laugh a great deal, as well as engage in lively banter and conversations about the fair sex and other cheerful subjects? And why? Finally, does this friend, probably a recent acquaintance, makes his first visit because in this case there will be not a second one and the friend won't come again? Why does this friend become so embarrassed, so stiff, all his wit notwithstanding, if indeed he has any, as he looks at the crestfallen face of his host, who in turn has already managed to become completely flustered and utterly muddled after gigantic but futile efforts to smooth over and keep the conversation going, to show his knowledge of the ways of the world, to talk, too, about the fair sex, and, at the very least, by some deference to please the poor person who has turned up at the wrong place and mistakenly come to visit him. Why, finally, does the guest suddenly grab his hat and quickly leave, having remembered all of a sudden some very urgent business, which never existed, and somehow or the other extricate his hand from the warm handshake of his host, who in every possible way was trying to show his regret and set right that which had been lost? Why does the departing friend chortle as he's going out of the door, and there and then vowing never to visit this crackpot, even though this crackpot is truly a most excellent fellow? At the same time, why can he not deny his imagination the passing fancy of comparing, if only remotely, the physiognomy of his recent interlocutors throughout the entire time of their meeting with the look of an unhappy little kitten, treacherously captured by children who have mauled, frightened, and tormented it in every way possible, and which has finally taken refuge from them under a chair in the dark, and there for an entire hour at its leisure bristles, hisses, and washes its aggrieved face with both paws, and for a long time afterwards looks with enmity at nature and life, and even at the scraps from his master's dinner, which the compassionate housekeeper had saved for him. Listen, interrupted Nastanka, who all this time had been listening to me in amazement, with her eyes and little mouth wide open. Listen, I absolutely do not know why all this happened and why you are putting such ridiculous questions to me. But what I do know from certain is that all these adventures certainly happened to you, word for word. Without a doubt, I answered with the most serious expression. Well, as there's no doubt, then continue, Nastenka answered, because I very much want to know how it all ends. You want to know, Nastenka, what our hero was doing in his corner, or rather what I was doing, for the hero of this whole affair is myself, my own humble person. You want to know why I became so alarmed and was flustered for an entire day by the unexpected visit of a friend? You want to know why I was so startled, why I blushed so when the door to my room opened, why I didn't know how to receive my guest, and why I floundered so shamefully under the weight of my own hospitality? Well, yes, yes, Nastenka answered. That's the whole point. Listen, you tell it splendidly, but could you tell it somehow less splendidly? Otherwise, you talk as though you are reading from a book. Nastanka, I answered in a dignified and stern voice. scarcely holding back my laughter. Dear Nastanka, I know that I'm telling it splendidly. I plead guilty, but I don't know how to tell it differently. Now, dear Nastanka, now, I'm like King Solomon's genie trapped in an earthenware urn for 1,000 years under seven seals, and from which these seven seals were at last removed. Now, dear Nastenka, when we have come together again after such a lengthy separation, because I have known you for a long time, Nastanka, because I have long been searching for someone, and that is a sign that I was looking precisely for you, and that we were fated to meet now. Now in my head, thousands of walls have opened, and I must set loose this river of words, or I will choke to death. So then, I ask that you do not interrupt me, Nastenka, but listen obediently and dutifully. Otherwise, I'll keep my silence. No, 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 by no means. Speak. I won't say another word. To continue, there is my friend Nastanka in my day 1 hour that I like exceedingly. It is the hour when almost all businesses, duties, and engagements are coming to an end, and everybody is hurrying home to dinner, to lie down and rest. And then and there, as they are making their way home, they concoct other cheerful schemes pertaining to the night, and all the rest of their free time. At this hour, our hero too, for allow me, Nastanka, to tell the story in the third person, because it's terribly embarrassing to tell all this in the first person. So then, at this hour, our hero too, who has also not been idle, walks along behind the others. But a strange sense of pleasure plays on his pale, somewhat rumpled face. With feelings, he looks at the sunset, which slowly fades away in the cold Petersburg sky. When I say he looks, I am lying. He doesn't look, but he contemplates it somehow without thinking, as if he were tired or preoccupied at the same time with some other more interesting object, so that he can only curiously, almost involuntarily, spare time for everything around him. He is pleased because he has finished until tomorrow with the business that he finds irksome. And he is as happy as a schoolboy who has been dismissed from the classroom to his favorite games and mischief. Look at him in profile, Nastanka. You'll see at once that joyful feeling, fortunately, has already begun to have an effect on his weak nerves and morbidly excited imagination. He's fallen deep in thought and about something. Do you think it's about dinner? About his evening? What is he looking at like that? At that respectable looking gentleman who bowed so picturesquely to the lady riding past him in a glittering carriage drawn by two frisky horses? No, Nastanka. What does he care about such trifles? His own particular life has already made him rich. He somehow suddenly became rich. And not in vain did the farewell ray of the dying sun so gaily sparkle before him and call forth an entire swarm of impressions from his warmed heart. Now he scarcely notices the path on which even the most pretty trifle would have struck him earlier. Now, the goddess of fantasy, if you have read Zhukovsky, dear Nastenka, has already spun her golden warp and begun to fashion before his eye patterns of a fantastic, marvelous life. And who knows, perhaps with her whimsical hand, she has transported him to a seventh crystal heaven from the excellent granite sidewalk on which he was walking home. Try stopping him now and ask him suddenly where he's standing now, along which streets has he walked. He probably will remember nothing, neither where he was walking, nor where he is now standing, and after blushing with vexation, he will certainly tell some lie in order to save face. That's why he was so taken aback, almost crying out and looking all in alarm, when a very respectable old woman who had lost her way politely stopped him in the middle of the sidewalk and began to ask him for directions. Frowning with vexation, he carries on walking, scarcely noticing that he has caused more than one passerby to smile and turn around to look at him as he walked away, and that some little girl, as she timidly made way for him, began to laugh loudly as she looked wide eyed at his broad, contemplative smile and gesturing hands. But the same fantasy caught up in its playful flight the old woman, and the curious passerbys, and the laughing girl, and the peasants who were spending their night right there on the barges that crowded the Fontanka. Let's assume at this moment our hero was walking along there and mischievously wove everybody and everything into canvas, like a fly in a spider's web. And with this new accusation that eccentric had entered his comforting lair, sat down to dinner, finished his dinner long ago, and only came to when the pensive and eternally doleful Matriona who waits on him had already cleared everything from the table and given him his pipe. He came to and recalled with surprise that he had already had his dinner, but had taken no notice whatsoever how that was accomplished. It had grown dark in the room. His heart feels empty and forlorn. The whole kingdom of dream was collapsed around him, collapsed without a trace, without a sound or fuss. It flew past like a vision, and he himself doesn't remember what he was dreaming about. But some vague sensation faintly disturbs his breast and causes it to ache. Some new desire seductively tickles and excites his fancy and imperceptibly summons a whole swarm of new phantoms. Quiet reigns in the little room. Solitude and indolence caress the imagination. It faintly catches fire. It is faintly brought to the boil, like the water in the coffee pot of old Matriona, who placidly potters about next door in the kitchen, as she makes her cook's coffee. Now it's already gently breaking through its burst. Now the book, picked up without purpose and at random, is already falling from my dreamer's hand, without his even getting to the third page. His imagination is once again incited, excited, and suddenly again a new world, a new enchanting life with its glistening vistas flashes before him. A new dream is new happiness, a new dose of exquisite, voluptuous poison. Oh, what does real life have to offer him? In his misdirected view, you and I, Nastanka, live so idly, slowly, sluggishly. In his view, we are all so dissatisfied with our fate, so worn down by our life. And then, really, as matter of the fact, look how everything at first glance among us is cold, gloomy, indeed wrathful. The poor things, my dreamer thinks. And it's no wonder that he should think so. Look at these magical phantoms that so enchantingly, so whimsically, so boundlessly and broadly take shape before him in such a magical, animated picture, in which the most important figure in the foreground, of course, is he himself, our dreamer, his own dear person. Look, what diverse adventures, what an endless swarm of aesthetic daydreams. You will ask, perhaps, what does he dream about? Why ask that? About everything. About the role of the poet who at first goes unrecognized, but is later crowned with success, about friendship with Hoffman, St. Bartholomew's Night, Dinah Vernon, the heroic role of Ivan Vasilievich in The Taking of Kazan, Clara Mowbray, Effie Deans, The Council of Prelates and Huss before them, The Rising of the Dead in Robert. Do you remember the music? It smells of graveyard. Mina and Brenda, The Battle of Berezina, the reading of a poem at Countess Weedy's, Dainton, Cleopatra, E Sui Amanti, The Little House in Columna, his own little corner, with a dear creature at his side who listens on a winter's evening with her little mouth and eyes open. Just as you are listening to me, my little angel. No, Nastenka. What need has he, this voluptuous sluggard of this life that you and I desire so? He thinks that this is a poor, pitiful life, not anticipating what perhaps someday the sad hour will strike for him as well, when for a single day of this pitiful life he would give up all of these fantastic years and give them up not for joy or for happiness or without wishing to choose in this hour of sadness, repentance, and boundless sorrow. But this terrible time has yet to come. He desires nothing because he is above desire, because he has everything, because he is sated, because he himself is the artist of his life and he creates it for himself every hour to suit his latest whim. And you see, this fairy tale, fantastic world is created so easily, so naturally, as though all this were truly not a phantom. Indeed, he is prepared to believe at certain moments that all of this life is not the excitement of feelings, not a mirage, not a delusion of imagination, but that it is indeed authentic, genuine, and real. Why? Tell me, Nastenka. Oh, why? At such moments does one's breathing becomes labored? Why, by what magic, by what mysterious caprice does the pulse quicken? Do tears gush forth from the dreamer's eyes? His pale, moist cheeks burn on his entire being fills with such irresistible delight. Why do whole sleepless nights pass by like a single instant in inexhaustible merriment and happiness? And when the dawn's rosy rays shines through the windows, and the day breaks illumes the gloomy room with its dubious fantastic light, such as we have in Petersburg, why does a dreamer, exhausted and weary, throw himself on his bed and fall asleep? His tormented and overwhelmed spirit trembling with ecstasy, while his heart aches with a sweet agony. Yes, Nastenka, you deceive yourself and unwittingly and dispassionately believe that it is a genuine, true passion that disturbs his soul. You unwittingly believe that there is something alive and tangible in his incorporeal daydreams. But, you see, it's all a delusion. Take, for example, the love that has pierced his breast with all this inexhaustible joy, with all its wearisome torments. Just look at him, and you'll be convinced. Would you believe, when you look at him, dear Nastanka, that indeed he has never known her whom he loves so in his frenzied daydreams? Can it be that he has only seen her in certain captivating phantoms and only dreamed this passion? Can it really be that they have not spent so many years of their lives together, hand in hand, alone, just the two of them, having forsaken the entire world and each uniting their life, their world, with the life of their friend? Can it really be that at this late hour, when the time had come to part, she did not lay there, sobbing and grieving on his breast, not hearing the storm which was breaking under the bleak sky, or the wind which plucked and carried away the tears from her black lashes? Can this really all be a dream? This garden, cheerless, desolate, and wild, with paths overgrown with moss, secluded and gloomy, where they so often would walk together, where they hoped, grieved, loved, and loved each other for such a long time, so long and tenderly. And this strange ancestral home in which she has lived for such a long time, secluded and melancholy, with her sullen old husband, always silent and peevish, who frightened them, while they, timid as children, dolefully and timorously concealed their love for each other. How they suffered, how fearful they were, and how innocent and pure was their love, and how, it goes without saying, Nastanka, malicious people are. And my God, was it really not she he met later, far from the shores of their homeland, under an alien sky, in the torrid south, in the marvelous eternal city, in the brilliance of a ball, to the thunder of music in Palazzo? It absolutely must be a palazzo. Drowned in a sea of lights, on this balcony, wreathed with myrtle and roses, where she, upon recognizing him, so hastily took off her mask and whispered, I am free, and trembling threw herself into his arms, and with a cry of rapture they embraced, and in an instant they forgot sorrow, separation, all their torments, the gloomy house, the old man, the dismal garden in their distant homeland, the bench on which, with one last passionate kiss, she had torn herself away from his arms, numb from torments of despair. Oh, you must agree, Nastanka, that you would be startled, feel embarrassed, and blush like a schoolboy who had just crammed into his pocket an apple stolen from the neighbor's orchard if some lanky, hearty lad, a merry fellow and a joker, your uninvited friend, opened your door and shouted as if nothing has happened. And I, my dear fellow, just got back from Palovesky. My goodness, the old count has died. Ineffable happiness is close at hand, and here people are coming from Palovesky. I pathetically fell silent upon concluding my pathetic exclamations. I remember that I wanted terribly somehow to force myself to burst out laughing, because I already sensed that an hostile little demon had begun to stir inside me, that I was about to choke, that my chin was beginning to quiver, and my eyes were watering more and more. I expected Nastenka, who was listening to me with her intelligent eyes wide open, to burst into her childish, irrepressible merry laughter, and was already regretting that I had gone too far, that I had been wrong to tell her about what had long seethed in my heart, about which I could talk as though I was reading a written text, because I had long ago passed sentence on myself, and now could not resist reading it, to confess, without expecting that I should be understood. But to my surprise, she kept silent. After waiting a little bit, she gently pressed my hand and with timid concern asked, can you really have lived your life like that? My whole life, Nastanka, I replied. My whole life. And I believe that's how I'll end my days. No, that's not possible, she said uneasily. It won't be like that. That would mean I would likely live out my whole life by grandmother's side. Listen, you do know that it's bad for you to live like that. I know, Nastanka, I know, I exclaimed, no longer holding my feelings in check. And now I know more than ever that I have wasted all my best years for nothing. I know this now. I feel all the more painfully now that I see God Himself has sent you, my good angel, to me in order to tell me this and prove it to me. As I sit beside you and talk to you now, I'm terrified even to think about the future because the future is once again loneliness, once again this stagnant, useless life. And what will there be for me to dream about when I have already been so happy in real life beside you? Oh, bless you, dear girl, for not turning me away from the very first, for making it possible that I can now say that I have lived at least 2 evenings in my life. Oh, no, no, Nastanka cried out, and little tears began to glisten in her eyes. No, it won't be like that any more. We won't part like that. What are 2 evenings? Oh, Nastenka, Nastenka, do you know you have reconciled me with myself for a good long time? Do you know that now I will not think so badly of myself as I sometimes have done? Do you know that now perhaps I will no longer suffer anguish for having committed a crime and sin in my life? Because a life like that is a crime and sin. And don't think that I have been exaggerating anything for you. For God's sake, Nastenka, don't think that because sometimes I am overcome by moments of such anguish and such anguish. Because at those moments, it begins to seem that I will never be able to begin living a real life. Because it already seems that I have lost all sense, all feeling for the genuine, the real. Because in the end, I curse myself. Because after my fantastic nights, I am visited by sobering moments that are horrible. Meanwhile, you hear all around you how the throng of humanity thunders and spins in the whirlwind of life. You see how people live. They live in reality. You see that life for them is not forbidden, that their life doesn't vanish like a dream, like a vision, that their life is eternally renewing, eternally young, and not a single hour of it resembles any other. Whereas, how cheerless and monotonously banal is the timorous fantasy, the slave of a shadow, of an idea, the slave of the first cloud that suddenly obscures the sky and fills with anguish the heart of every true Petersburger, which holds its son so dear. But what sort of fantasy is there to be found in anguish? You sense that this inexhaustible fantasy is finally growing tired, that it is becoming exhausted under the constant strain. Because you see, you are growing into manhood. You are outgrowing your formal ideals. They are being smashed to dust, to bits and pieces. And if there is no other life, then you must build it from these bits and pieces. But meanwhile, your soul yearns and pleads for something else, and in vain does the dreamer rake through his old dreams, as if they were ashes, searching in these ashes for at least some little spark, in order to fan it into flames, and with this rekindled fire warm his heart, which has grown cold, and resurrect himself again, once again, everything that he had held dear, that had touched his soul, that had made his blood boil, and had brought tears to his eyes, and had so splendidly deceived him. Do you know, Nastenka, how low I have fallen? Do you know that I am compelled now to celebrate the anniversary of my own sensations, the anniversary of that which was formerly so dear, of that which is in essence never took place, because this anniversary is celebrated in honor of those same foolish phantom dreams, and to do it because even those foolish dreams are no more, because I have nothing with which to replenish them. You see, even dreams need to be replenished. Do you know that I now like to recall and visit the certain places and times where I was once happy in my own way? I like to fashion my present so that it's in harmony with the irrevocable past. And I often wander like a shadow, without need or purpose, downcast and sad, through the alleys and streets of Petersburg. And what memories? You recall, for instance, that exactly a year ago now, exactly at this very same time, at this very same hour, you wandered along this very sidewalk just as lonely, just as downcast as you are now. And you recall that your dreams were sad then as well. And even though it was not better then, nevertheless, you somehow feel that it was easier, that you lived more comfortably, that there wasn't this black brooding that troubles you now, that you didn't have those pangs of conscience, these gloomy, dismal pangs that may give you no peace night or day. And you ask yourself, where are your dreams? And you shake your head and say, how quickly do the years fly by? And again you ask yourself, what have you done with your years? Where have you buried your best days? Did you live or not? Look, you say to yourself, look how cold the world is becoming. More years will pass, followed by gloomy solitude, and then dodging old age will come with on a walking stick, to be followed by anguish and despondency. Your fantastic world will grow pale. Your dreams will wither, die, and scatter like yellow leaves from the trees. Oh, Nastenka, it will be sad. To be left alone, quite alone, and not even have something to regret. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Because all that I have lost, all this, it was all nothing. A stupid round zero. It was merely a dream. Now, stop trying to make me feel sorry for you, Nastenka said, wiping away a tear which had rolled down from her eye. That's all over now. The two of us will be together now. Now, no matter what happens to me, we will never part. Listen, I'm a simple girl without my education. Although my grandmother did hire a teacher for me, but I truly do understand you. Because everything that you've told me just now, I experienced myself when grandmother pinned me to her dress. Of course, I couldn't have told it so well as you have done. I am not educated, she added timidly because she was still feeling some sort of respect for my pathetic speech and my lofty style. But I'm very happy that you have confided in me so completely. Now I know you through and through. I know everything about you. And do you know what? I want to tell you my story now. All of it, frankly, and afterwards, you'll give me your advice. You're a very sensible man. Do you promise to give me your advice? Ah, Nastenka, I replied. Although I have never been an advisor, much less a sensible advisor, I see now that it would somehow be very sensible if we were to always live like this, and we would give each other a lot of sensible advice. Well, my pretty Nastanka, what advice should I give you? Tell me frankly. I am so cheerful, happy, bold, and sensible now that I won't be at a loss for words. No, no, Nastanka interrupted, laughing. It's not only sensible advice that I need. I need advice that is heartfelt and brotherly, as though you have loved me all your life. All right, Nastanka, all right, I cried out in delight. And if I'd already loved you for 20 years, I still couldn't have loved you more than I do right now. Give me your hand, Nastanka said. Here it is, I answered as I gave her my hand. And so, let's begin my story. Okay, that was chapter 2, our narrator's story. We will continue with Nastanka's story in the next episode and see you then.